Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here's your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode in Season 3 of People in Fundraising. It is Friday, February 2nd, 2024, and today I'm really excited and looking forward to our conversation with Mariame Sano, who is joining us from Massachusetts. Hi there, Mariame.
Hi, Tim. I am very excited to be here, and I'm also looking forward to talking with you. My name is Mariame, as Tim mentioned. I am a senior manager of corporate and community partnerships with Make-A-Wish, Massachusetts and Rhode Island. And I'm excited to talk to you guys about fundraising and everything in between.
That sounds great. I'm looking forward to this. We haven't heard each other's voices, haven't seen each other ever before. But we got connected through LinkedIn, and I really appreciate, a relatively energetic newcomer to fundraising. You post a lot about the work you do, but also some personal stuff that, motivates you, gets you through the day. And so I want to try and cover both of those because I find a lot of good content in what you post on LinkedIn.
Well, I'm excited to talk about both. Thanks for highlighting that, by the way.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as we always do in these conversations, Mariame, the first question is just tell us, please, how you entered the nonprofit social impact sector.
I think it feels like very similar to a lot of people in nonprofit. There didn't seem to be necessarily a clear path to it. I think for me, however, initially, when I was at Bridgewater State, I majored in criminal justice. I was certain I was going to law school. I'm, immigrant descent. It's law, science, medical field, whatever. It's very restricted. So I was certain I was going to law school. However, I've always been passionate about, nonprofit work and giving back. And I've also, throughout my college years, have realized just how good I could be with sales, pitching things, and really like the event planning portion of things. So once I graduated, I took some time off, and then instead of going straight into college, when reevaluating, I meant law school actually, when reevaluating cost and things like that, I decided that I actually wanted to first try something that I really loved. So I started to keep an eye out for opportunities in nonprofit. At the time, I was doing sales with Staples Corporate, and a friend of mine just told me about, a fundraising position that opened up, and based on the description and experiences that I've had, I thought it lined up. And that's how I landed in fundraising, and I've never really looked back. So.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
And how long ago was that, Mariame?
This was 8-9 years ago.
Okay.
So it's been, I think it was about 8 years ago now.
Awesome. Dynamite.
Yeah.
And has it always been in Massachusetts
It's always been in Massachusetts. At the time, it was with the Boy Scouts, and I was doing development management. So it's really like special events. I was got involved with some of our peer-to-peer fundraising campaigns, grant writing. And then now from there, switched over to Make-A-Wish to sort of do a little bit more of that and build a lot of our strategies too around it. So it's been a pretty exciting shift for sure.
Awesome. And how long have you been at Make-A-Wish of Massachusetts and Rhode Island?
I've been at Make-A-Wish, Massachusetts and Rhode Island for almost 2 years, actually. So in March, it'll be 2 years. Yeah, it feels like it's been forever. It's been such an incredible journey so far, but it's only been 2 years.
Dynamite. Well, congratulations on 2 years.
Yeah, thank you.
My next question is a follow-up to your role at the Make-A-Wish Foundation of Massachusetts and Rhode Island. You are the senior manager, as you mentioned, of corporate and community partnerships. What would you like our audience to know about that role in particular? The breadth of what you do, the people that you serve, in person, virtual, anything that you think would be helpful for people to get a sense of the role and what you derive the most satisfaction and energy from in the work you do?
I think so the role itself is two components, right? Corporate, I feel like, is a little bit more self-explanatory. People meet a lot of people that do sort of corporate management, corporate relationship management and fundraising.
Yeah.
I think community partnership is what's very a bit unique-ish that I've really come to enjoy a lot.
Mm.
And it's been just an incredible opportunity to meet people from all different levels in life, right? Like I can literally be talking to middle schoolers, elementary age kids
Wow.
today about their fundraising initiatives that is making an impact. And then tomorrow I might be talking to like, corporate individuals, corporate sponsors, or adults who, are just hosting golf tournaments.
Yeah.
But I would say that piece, the thing that resonates most with me about it is just it highlights every day the incredible power of what is possible when we come together.
Yeah.
And there, small donations and people really just tapping into their own networks, right? And asking friends and family members to join them on this adventure that they're on to raise money for this organization that they care about. And those have just added up to just have an incredible impact on our mission.
Yeah.
Um, and that's just been, I think, every day, the most fascinating part is just being reminded of you can do a lot. You can do a lot as one person. You can do a lot with very little, and you can have a huge impact as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of community focused organizations like Make-A-Wish. It's a very compelling mission, and you know a lot of people in life have family members that are impacted by um, serious health challenges, mental health challenges, and to know that there are people like you trying to bring moments of joy and uplift into their lives is really, really cool.
That is absolutely true and very spot on. I think that another thing too that I feel like often we don't talk about a lot in fundraising is also the power and impact that the organization, the brand that the organization has actually has, and how much that sort of affect outcomes. Make-A-Wish has certainly been an incredibly well-received organizations in all of the outreach, and much more easier organization to pitch just because people know someone or you've seen a video, you sort of have a very good sense of what the organization does. So that's been great in that it resonate with people, it resonate with all ages of people, and it's a
Sure.
very simple mission to explain to anyone.
Yeah,
So, yeah.
that's great. Yeah, it's like an immediate hook to people. So
Literally.
yeah,
It's interesting because there's that side, and then a little bit of the flip side too is because it's such a large brand, I think sometimes too we're having to deal with some misconceptions, right? Like people
mm,
think, oh, it's a national, which is true. We have a Make-A-Wish America, but we're operating very locally. Like I work for Make-A-Wish Massachusetts and Rhode Island, right? The
yeah,
wishes we are granting, the impact we're having, it's local. It's in your
yeah,
neighborhood. It's in your community. And so having to be able to push that messaging out there and raise more awareness for the organization in that way is also a second piece to that as well.
definitely. And I think as I prepared for our conversation today, and I really appreciate how you've described the impact of the work you do. There's a quote from Margaret Wheatley that I included in one of the questions, and I just would love to get your thoughts on it. I think you've really touched on it already, but the quote from Margaret was or is that quote, "There is no power for change greater than a community discovering what it cares about." And
Mhm.
so you mentioned talking to middle schoolers, talking to corporations, community partners. Like, how have you seen diverse communities, different business models, again, children, how they come together around the initiatives, the causes that you are involved in?
Everyone seems to be tied to it in different ways, but I think all motivated and driven by the desire to give back.
Yeah.
And by the desire to do good. And I think this quote resonated a lot with me. It actually was my first time hearing it. But it resonated a lot with me because it literally, like we were talking about the power of how much you could do as a community, right? Where when you recognize, oh, I'm a part of a larger set, right? And I can make a difference and I care about something that you're able to feel empowered to do your part, right? To do a
Yeah.
little bit just to make sure you're able to advance it. But I think in general, like we get, sometimes it's the small things, like a child's, actually, like a few months ago, I reached out to a school, St. Mary's School. It was their first time donating. There are different St. Mary's, but this particular one in Attleboro was their first time donating to us. And so the principal sent in the check. I followed up to say hello because I wanted to learn more about how it came about. And
Yeah.
so her story is that, her fifth grade class came up to her and said, "We've seen this video on TV about Make-A-Wish, and we want to do something to help."
Wow.
And so they spearhead a campaign. The kids did what they had to do. They did big sales. They raised money for the organization and sent in over $1,000. And like these are
Whoa.
just young kids, right? Like we're talking fifth grade class.
Oh, that's
So
beautiful.
it's really just everyone is connecting to it differently. But I think for some, it's because they know someone who has been impacted by the wish granting program. Others, have had friends before. Others have seen like the videos online, but it's all goes back, I think, to the incredible brand that the organization has built over the years
Yeah.
around, the work that they do and the impact that it has overall.
Yeah, absolutely. That is great. And I can see why you've been there for 2 years. That's really cool.
Oh yeah. Oh, it's been a fun ride for sure. I definitely feel like I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to be doing. So that's a really good
Oh,
feel.
that's really good. Yeah, I'm glad for you.
Yeah.
Um, my next question, Mariam, kind of gets more at the personal, like, the who you are, and you had these questions in advance. And so as I did some prep work for our conversation, I wanted to glean some content from your LinkedIn post, which I mentioned earlier, are interesting, and I find a lot of good personal anecdotes in there. And your LinkedIn profile notes that you are a first generation immigrant whose journey in the US, quote, hasn't always been easy. My question here is, what did you learn about yourself in terms of resilience and uh, getting resources you needed, to continue on this journey, and how have those resources, again, the resilience, the can-do attitude, helped you in both your life and in your career?
That's a very interesting question because I read it a few times, and every time I wanted to say resilience to in response to it, but there's probably more to it. And I think that for me, one of the biggest things that this journey has taught me, right, like uprooting, moving to a new place, um, first as a junior of high school, right, like, and then
Oh,
having just a year or two to learn the language, prepare
mm,
for college, head to college, like there was just a
wow.
lot happening within a very short period of time.
Yeah.
And I think for me, looking back now, I would say the biggest thing that I've learned through this journey is that anything is possible.
Yeah.
And that as long as you're willing to ask for help, right? Be very coachable and ask for help when you need it and ask the right questions. Someone would always be willing to guide you along the way. So I think the generosity of an incredible number of folks that I have met along the way has played a huge role in, how I've gotten here.
Yeah.
Um, but also just the journey itself has fueled my belief that like if you want to do something and you really, really want to do it, there's a way. There's
Yeah.
definitely a way.
Oh, I love that. That is great. I think that spirit, that having a vision and trying to realize it, bring it to life, is really empowering.
Agreed. Honestly, I agreed. I think like purpose is incredibly important. Like in order to get where you're going, you need to have an idea of where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I think the clearer that is for you, the easier it is for you to get there because you're meeting the right people along the way.
Yeah.
So I think that I 100% agree with that sentiment.
Yeah. Dynamite. Before we get to the next question, I just have a follow-up. I'm just curious, why Massachusetts?
Oh,
When you
you know what? I had visited the US several times actually, like
oh,
as a child. My family was fortunate enough to be able to travel, and my mom loved traveling.
oh,
So we visited a lot. My aunt, my dad's sister live in Boston. She still does. I was going to say lived, but she still live in Boston.
yeah.
And so we had come for vacation several times. And I was always fascinated when my cousins were speaking English. I'm like, this feels cool. Like I want to learn this language.
Hmm.
So when the time came and an opportunity presented to move for schooling, I was like, yeah, I know where I'm gonna go. Like I
Oh,
want to go to learn English and I want to go to the US. So that just made sense. I think it was that connection of being with them and visiting that sort of sparked that interest.
oh, so cool. Thank you. Thanks for adding that part of the
Yeah.
story. So Mariam, as I was putting the questionnaire together, um, I was I was really jazzed to know that or to see that you have ties to Bridgewater State University.
I
Um,
do.
and if I could just quickly see if this will work, I want to share an image, and that didn't work. That just the campus of Bridgewater State University.
Oh, okay.
It is beautiful.
And it's
And
changed so much. I was literally there like it's 2 weeks ago.
oh,
Not
were
even,
you?
maybe last week. Yeah. It's changed a lot at the same time, not so much. It was very interesting to be back on campus.
Yeah. Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
My dad has worked there all of his career.
I heard that's amazing. Did he
Yeah,
go to Bridgewater?
he did.
How did you miss out on that?
Well, I actually lived about a block from campus. And so my dad, had one of the shortest commutes known to humanity. Uh, it was just a little too close to my parents' house. So I went to
No,
UMass
I feel
anyway.
you. I feel you. And Bridgewater can feel very small very, very quickly. So,
Yeah. Um, so you attended Bridgewater State University and graduated from there. And,
yeah.
I just loved that, knowing that piece about you. I've had Jessica McNeil was a guest in season one. I don't know if you
Jessica
knew
and
her.
I we went to Bridgewater around the same time. We were
Oh,
both incredibly involved on campus, so we knew each other
okay.
while in school, and we try to stay in touch. But she's also in fundraising, so that's good. Good.
Yeah, yeah, excellent. I I would love to get to a segment about the conversation about Bridgewater State in particular. So while you were a student there, you were president of the African Student Association,
Mm-hmm.
and you also, I think, really did a lot of development community around, um, first generation college students from underrepresented countries, which Bridgewater really does, I think, from my perspective, a good job of helping first
Mm-hmm.
generation college students get access to education, high quality education, meeting the students where they're at. In particular, students from Cape Verde. I know there's an incredible partnership between that
Yeah.
institution and
Yeah.
that island country off of Africa, west coast of Africa. Um, so I would love to hear, sort of the depth of your involvement in the student community when you were there, please.
I loved Bridgewater. I had a ton of fun there. I've learned a lot about myself while at Bridgewater. Um, I I came to Bridgewater in 2011
Okay.
and sort of knew I wanted to be involved. I've always sort of been that kind of person, wanting to always learn, put myself in spaces as well where I can, meet people and get to know people and be involved. And so during the very first fair that the school had, this was, I think, the multicultural office fair. They had displayed of different clubs that were on campus at the time, and I found out that that the African Student Association had a club. There were other like multicultural clubs on campus as well, and that this could be a good place to start. So I joined ASA, and I joined just as regular member. Was just going to meet people, and in addition to all the other avenues of meeting individuals that's on campus.
Yeah.
Shortly though, after I joined, the president switched schools,
Oh,
and so it became interesting. The dynamics shifted, and then the vice president at the time took it over. But somewhere along the way, I think friends started to plant the seed of, you might want to consider, because I had just ideas, right? Like I didn't know much, but I knew I kind of wanted it to feel different. Like I knew I wanted it to be more open. I knew I wanted us to leverage the club to sort of debunk some of the narratives that people have about Africa and misconceptions that they have.
sure.
Because I was also a very new immigrant, right? Like I went straight to high school. People sometimes are very have a lot of single stories about Africa. So I was like, I
Sure.
kind of think we can do things differently.
Yeah.
And so I got pushed into that direction. And by the end, I guess, of my freshman year, I ran
Whoa.
to run the club.
Wow.
What I was thinking. But I had a ton of fun, and then learned about all the other ways I can be involved on campus. Like SGA came up during that time because I was like, okay, now we need more seats at the table. We need to be advocating for ourselves better. But I truly just had an amazing time, met incredible individuals at Bridgewater
Yeah.
who really played a role in shaping me as a young leader. But really also getting me thinking more about, my skill set, what added value I bring into spaces, and how to be a better leader.
Sure.
Um, so ASA did well. It grew during my tenure. We got more people involved. It became a lot more, we partnered with a lot more other organizations and had just a phenomenal opportunity to just retell the story of Africa as a whole, because we had
Yeah.
students from all over. And so for a lot of us, we were also learning about each other, right? Like I don't know a lot about Ethiopia, and people often think, Africa is a country where, cultures are different from place to place. So
Oh,
it just became an amazing opportunity for us to learn about each other's places as well, while we were teaching about, the continent, and then just giving a different perspective on who we were on campus.
so important. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, I think I should know this, but I think there's about at least 50, maybe 55
Yeah, I feel
independent
like you
countries
just do
in
this every
Africa.
day. Yeah, but this was 55, yeah, countries
Yeah.
in Africa.
Yeah.
Um, and we had a good amount of representation and diversity too, right? Like we have, Haitian Americans that were involved. We had like students from Asian backgrounds. We had white students that were involved because we really wanted people to kind of understand a little bit more about us, right? Like you
Yeah.
have to interact with people to be able to know more about their cultures and stuff. So it became a really nice, do we say salad bowl, melting pot, like whatever. It was
I like the
good.
salad bowl concept better than melting pot, personally.
Yeah, because you keep who you are, and you still add good flavors. I do too. I do
Yes.
too.
Yeah. Dynamite. Was there a specific, and this may be hard to pinpoint, but was there a specific experience or a person that really crystallized for you the welcoming, vibrant, diverse community at Bridgewater State when you were a student?
So I can say that I would say there were at Bridgewater 3 people, but I think overall it felt a little bit more than Bridgewater. But I would say, so Sydney Morrell, who was the director of CMA at some point, she came in as the director during my tenure, was great. Like she was a fantastic mentor. Cindy Kane is still there
Huh?
at Bridgewater. She's fantastic. She was the director of student life at the time. She
Okay.
really pushed me to do a lot more like leadership trainings, Gallup surveys to figure out your 5 strengths when they weren't that popular,
Oh,
sending me to leadership conferences outside of Bridgewater. So she was incredible in just recognizing me as a young voice, young talent, and sort of pushing me to do more of that. So she was great. Diane Bell was also a great mentor. I think Diane Bell is probably still with Bridgewater. But I think overall, when I think about, especially, I would say professional career, I credit a lot of my ability to navigate this culture, this education system, and opportunities to Bottom Line, which is an organization separate from Bridgewater, but we were meeting on campus. So they would come to schools, and their mission is to basically help degree aspiring first generation students get into college, graduate, and go far in life. Like a
oh,
very
awesome.
simple mission, but a lot of work.
Yeah, sure.
And I connected with them shortly after I sort of moved here, and with them I navigated the entire process. So like I
Wow.
knew what I should have focused on in school, and then I was networking through them. I was, applying for the right kind of job, and they constantly kept me on track to like career excellence and career success. So I think that support that I was getting at Bridgewater in terms of like how to be a better leader, but academically I was getting and career wise, I was getting a lot of my my resources from Bottom Line.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, it's a fantastic organization.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, thanks for spotlighting Bottom Line.
you're welcome.
Yeah. Well, thank you. I could probably talk about Bridgewater State all day. But
I love BSU. I love BSU. Once a bear, always a bear.
right.
So maybe we can have that conversation offline if you want.
Sure. My next question, Mariam, gets back to your fundraising experience, and the day-to-day responsibilities. So as you mentioned in your introduction, you've been in nonprofit development for 8 or 9 years. Is that correct? Was it 7 or 8?
Correct. Yeah,
Yeah.
professionally. Yeah.
Okay. What is it about? And I'm sure this answer will touch on other aspects that you talked about earlier. But what has motivated you to stay in this profession? Because earlier you mentioned you were interested in criminal justice and health and law. So, a wide variety of interests. So, now coming up in almost a decade in the industry, what's made you stay?
So in nonprofit, it's because I recognize that no matter what you want to do in life, you want to be able to have the skill set of raising the funds. You need the money, right? Like even if you're starting a business, you're going to need to be able to pitch it to someone for them to invest in that. So I think that I have been able to learn and acquire a ton of skill set around how to rally people behind a specific cause through fundraising. And part of why I think this is, part of how I know this is important for me is because my passion is to be able to do that on a larger scale in Africa. And so these are skill sets that I think would be that are necessary to continue to have a larger impact. And I care about impact work, like I care about the nonprofit sector. So it's something that I see myself continuing to do. But I think the field of fundraising, again, going back to like having a clear purpose and a clear why, right? Like, it's just been a pretty fun field for me to be in because every day is sort of a different new challenge that you have to sort of think creatively through and new avenues and getting dollars in. And so I'm able to experiment and learn and meet with like-minded individuals to really kind of acquire the necessary skill set to be able to raise large dollar amounts and make a larger impact. So so I would say it's what's keeping me in fundraising, in addition to the fact that it's tied to the nonprofit world too. So.
That's terrific. Thank you. Yeah. I think there are definitely ties that I'm hearing from what you were talking about. Your student experience, bringing more, you mentioned that the ASA grew and you articulating a vision with leadership seminars and such. And it sounds like that's exactly the same tack you're doing now in development.
Yeah, it really is. In many ways, like I get now to work with like I mentioned middle schools, but like college students, right? That's a whole
Yeah.
campaign that I manage and like
Oh,
motivate young people. Why do you do impact work? How do you become good at it? How do you raise funds? What are the keys and successes to fundraising? So I get to do a lot of like inspiring and molding young minds, which makes it very fun and very
sure.
exciting.
Yeah,
So it definitely, I think there's definitely sort of a trajectory and a sort of similarities when you really look at my time overall, both at Bridgewater and professionally.
yeah, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome.
I've got we have 10 minutes left. I mean, there are two questions I would love to get to,
Okay.
Mariame. The first one is I've asked a few guests this as well in the past, and I just think I like this particular question because it can talk about professional learning or accomplishments, or it can get into other areas of what makes you you. So what's a story of yours that you don't get to tell often enough, and maybe this is the platform to do that?
Um, I would say it probably is just around my commitment still and my passion
Yeah,
to want to move back to Africa and give back to the continent. I think a lot of times when people hear that, they're sort of surprised and shocked, like, "Oh,
yeah,
you want like actually, yeah, I do. I really do."
yeah,
Because I've always found a sense of responsibility, like that the privilege to be able to move away, the privilege to have access to all that I've been able to have access to is not really afforded to everyone. So I've
sure.
always felt a sense of responsibility to do something with that, right? To help others. So I think a story I don't tell enough is how I really am working to figure out when and how, do I take some of my expertise and skill set that I've learned here to impact life, particularly women and girls in Africa.
Sure. Wow,
Yeah.
that's awesome. I'll be excited to follow your
I,
story.
I, I can't wait. I can't wait. I'll keep you in the loop, I promise.
Yeah, please do. That sounds really motivating and definitely needed. I think
Yeah.
when whether it's the larger African diaspora or individual countries, again, like Bridgewater State, there's a significant Cape
Hmm.
Verdean
Hmm.
diaspora in southeastern Massachusetts, or the Indian diaspora. It's, and what do I know? I mean, based on how I look, I don't know much about that, but I still think it is really, needed, beneficial, for
100%.
people to
100%.
give
I
back
think
and go back.
100%. I think the flight of intellect, talents, and resources out of Africa, out of many parts of the world, is the most devastating. Right, the flight of
Yeah,
human capital is the most devastating thing that can happen for our regions. And I think that I'm grateful that I have like sort of this drive, and I'm seeing more of people from where I'm from in Guinea like planning to move back, wanting to like figure out and bring their expertise there. So I
yeah,
hope that that's a trend that can sort of replicate a little bit, because I think um for me, like somebody's got to go do the work, right? Of
sure.
making it better, bringing the resources, of providing the quality of life that we're able to enjoy here. And so I think it's heading that way, but I definitely hope and wish to see more of that.
Yeah. Well, it's beautifully put. Thank you.
Mhm.
And maybe in a few years, I'll have you back on as a guest and
Yes. Oh
learning.
my God. It's going to be a whole different conversation. Maybe I'll be answering from Africa. You never
Right.
know.
Right.
Updates on how things are going out there. Yeah.
That would be cool. Well, Mariam, my last question, we have about 5 minutes left. And I mentioned earlier just the really insightful, personable content that you put on LinkedIn. And um, this post in particular, I wanted to follow up on with you. I just think it's really fascinating. And so a few months ago, you posted on LinkedIn about you're an early riser.
5
And
a.m. club every day. Much earlier, but we don't need to talk about that.
how early is early, first of all?
Honestly, it depends.
Okay.
It really depends. I think a lot of times people assume that when you wake up early, you get less sleep.
Hmm.
But now, like, I'm pushing 4 a.m., 3 a.m. And it just means that I go to bed earlier.
Yeah.
Uh, but I'm finding that just that morning has just been a game changer for me personally and professionally.
Oh, good, good.
Yeah, it's been amazing, but I think it
Yeah.
all depends on, when you go to sleep, essentially.
Right. And so if I could read some of this quote from your post, and when I introduced you, I meant to say really energetic, and it came out relatively energetic. I don't know if you caught that. I meant really energetic, and part of that is because of what you posted about. And in this, saying that you're an early riser, you mentioned, I wake up and do what my heart desires, uninterrupted. I just am. And you mentioned whether it's 3, 4, 5 o'clock in the morning. I love that sentiment. And in the question I posed to you, I added a snippet from Ben Franklin about his daily schedule. Um, and he was also a really early riser. Was that he would rise and address powerful goodness, or what he was his name for God. And he had various components of, when he woke up early, what did he do to prepare for the day? So how has adapting to the schedule you're on now of going to bed earlier, waking up earlier, changed you as a person?
Um, Honestly, in a million different ways, but I think more than anything, it's made me a much more conscious and self-aware person. I think it's provided a lot of space for me to be able to reflect, like, right, on the previous days, how I showed up in certain spaces
Mm,
professionally or personally, and how differently I would like to show up. And then also because I enjoy work, right? I'm a Capricorn. That's what we do. We abide by and buy into capitalism. We can't help it. Um, One of the greatest things that I think this has done for me is to give me a sense of like fulfillment in my
mm,
personal life as well. So like I don't feel like all I do is work, right? Like I feel
yeah,
like, oh, I can enjoy the simple pleasures and the things that I really like
yeah,
without having, anyone bothering me, without being anything to anyone else. And that has been a big shift for me because
mm,
there's a lot happening at the same time, right? We live in a world where we're hyper connected, and being able to just press pause on overthinking and be in this moment and enjoy a simple walk
yeah.
uninterrupted has just been amazing. It's a huge boost to my mental health, and I'm really grateful for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think in your post, it may have been, if I'm remembering it right, I think you took photos of flowers and you mentioned
Yeah,
your walk
yeah.
and such. So yeah.
It's very simple things like that. And before that, I didn't do enough of it. And I never even thought I had a creative eye. And I learned through this process, all it takes is actually to just look, like just
Yeah.
pause and look. So one of my favorite things is to actually catch the sunrise,
Mm.
and it always brings me joy. I have like a
Oh.
million different pictures of the sun rising
Yeah.
every day.
Mm.
So it's incredible. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
the simple things. It really does make all of the difference. And so I come to work extra energetic a little bit because
Yeah.
people are like, why are you acting like you've been up? Well, I have been up for a while. Sorry. It feels like noon in my body right now. Let's go. So it feels very, very different. And I
Yeah.
definitely recommend it for sure.
Awesome. Well, I love that sense. I was just thinking of like grounding or centering because you said,
Correct.
just look. You know, just be aware, just be present. And again, in that post, you said, you just am, you know, at that time of day, you just are, and whatever you're doing is for you. It's not for anyone else.
Yeah. 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 And it makes all of the difference,
Yeah.
in your mood and, feeling more balanced in this culture and relating to people differently. So it just has been a huge game changer for sure.
Oh, that's great. Thank you
Yeah.
for taking the time to explain that. I really found that interesting.
Do you wake up early?
It depends.
There's a
Um,
need to get you on a schedule, Tim.
well, I don't think I'll do 3 a.m.
5 is okay.
Yeah, 5's okay. Yeah, yesterday it was about 5:30.
That's good.
But today was 6:30. So there's no typically consistent time. I'm generally within an hour of for me, my ideal is 6. My wife and I have 4 kids, so sometimes it depends on how they went to bed, or are they waking up early for school events, or maybe they're ill during the night. So there's still some variables, but
Do
yeah,
you get to?
but what I am consistent about is 10:30 I'm in bed. So
That's awesome.
yeah.
That's awesome. That's literally when I go to bed. That's awesome.
Yeah. So yeah, I think trying to be, at least for
Balance.
me, be consistent in that regard, like that important piece of rest. I feel like the next day can be more purposeful. I've got more energy, more clarity than if it's, I'm waking up at 7:30 and then rushing out to start the day. Yeah.
Correct. I agree.
Yeah.
We'll take 5:30. We'll take 6 o'clock. It's all good. As long as you have time for yourself in the morning.
Right.
It's great because that's all. I think that's the whole purpose of it.
Yeah.
Is to be able to make time for the things that you enjoy, and also just get more out of your days as well.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, a kindred spirit. I'm waking up early.
You can pick up the 5. I never read this though, but I've heard a lot about it. But it's the 5 a.m. club
Oh,
from, I forgot her name. I think it's Robin something. I'll pull it up and send it to you. It might be helpful.
okay.
But I've heard her speak about it, and it's sort of like the same idea and same sentiment of, first of all, how to shift into something like that, but also why it can make a difference, especially when you have little ones too.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I'll send it over.
Yeah. Thank you.
Extra motivation.
Well, Mariame, this has been a real delight. Thank you for your time today. Thank you for your energy, your enthusiasm, really personable. And I just felt like there's a lot that our audience can learn, both about what fuels the work you do and also what fuels you as a person. And also for sharing some of your dream with us about doing impact work in Africa. This has been really awesome. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm glad that we finally get to meet virtually, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to talk and share a little bit about the work that I do and who I am as a person in fundraising. And
Yes.
it's been an incredible conversation. I enjoyed it a ton.
Well, thank you so much. That means a lot.
You're welcome.
So for our audience, you'll be able to find Mariame's great conversation on LinkedIn and YouTube, and then the audio will be on Spotify and Podbean in April of 2024. And we'll be back next week with another conversation. And Mariame, thank you again. Great to meet you. Have a good day.